All right, everybody, welcome back. I've got a full cup of coffee. It is Monday morning, and we are going to be talking about a hyper-growth industry, something that almost matches the tech boom of the early and mid 90s. With us today, we have Sara Stowe, who is the Senior Director of People and Culture at True Terpenes. Sara, thank you so much for coming on. We are going deep into the cannabis industry, talking about the incredible gifts about this new and growing industry has, but also some of the challenges and what you're facing as the top HR executive at one of these manufacturing companies. Sara, welcome to Great Mondays Radio. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So can you just let's level set. So when we first met, you explained what you did and my mind blew up because I didn't know. I'm not in the cannabis industry. I didn't know that there was so many different aspects to it. Of course, now that I think about it, it kind of makes sense. But tell me a little bit, what is True Terpenes? What is it that you all do? And yeah, how is it this kind of, what role does it play in the cannabis industry?
Yes, it's a very specialized sort of niche space within cannabis. And when I came on board, I had the same questions like what's a terpene? And essentially, a terpene is the chemical that any kind of botanical might produce, a flower, a shrub, a tree. When you smell that plant, you're smelling the terpenes, and there's other kind of sub particles and chemicals beyond that our product development team will tell you more about. But they're in abundance in cannabis. We know cannabis for its very pungent, familiar scent, and we know that there's all different kind of strains within that. And so when the cannabis industry came legal, and you had these products that would distill from the plant, how do you add that aroma back into it? And that's where the terpenes are. So our company manufactures those terpenes. We have an incredibly talented product design team that can take these essentially building blocks of aroma that we distill to, and then create any scent aroma that our customer is looking for. We have 200 SKUs in our product catalog. We have a kind of a jelly belly style made to create, where you can mix and match and create your own flavors. And then we have a customs program for special customers as well. And it's super fun. Our product development team are chemists and food scientists. And so this is, akin to perfumery, and other kind of flavor creation and aroma development.
It's really interesting because it feels to me, right, there's this element of, like we said, where we're kind of just at the beginning, and it feels like an industry that is going from super immature to maybe a little bit more mature, right? So it's still rapidly growing, which we'll talk about in a minute. It feels a little bit luxury, perfumery, right? And all of these very nuanced elements that people are very familiar with and are going to hold your feet to the fire, right? And make sure that they're right. And you're in manufacturing, right? This is such an interesting place to be in. Let's start with the hypergrowth aspect of this. Can you talk a little bit about how you have been hiring and what that has been like in an industry that is also in a robust growth phase? Like, what are you doing to find the right people? Are you getting a lot of applications? Is it easy to find the right people? Is it hard? Like, what makes it that way?
Yeah, and it's, as much as the industry has rapidly evolved, so has the answer to that. So when I first started in the cannabis industry, it was 2018. I worked for a company that was not particularly known in terms of the name of the employer. It was really known for its brand. And we were going to, go into all these states and expand, and we were going to be hiring hundreds of people a year. And I was brought on to, lead the strategy of how we're going to do that. And I've always come from a place of being pretty scrappy. I didn't work for, big brands, and so, had a lot of tools in the tool belt. And it was a matter of like posting the position and getting hundreds of applicants. And I realized it wasn't us and our brand or even the product. It was the fact that we were in the cannabis industry and people wanted to be a part of it. And for many, many different reasons, people felt an emotional connection to the product, to the plant, to the movement. Cannabis really is its own culture.
Yep.
It's happens to have an industry that is part of that culture, and I think it's important to remember that we are, to keep cannabis centered. I mean, it has its own language, it has its own music, it has its own holiday. And so, people find that, really, really special and unique, and they wanted to be part of that. And I think the newness of it as well, and being able to build something. And so that's what was doing the heavy lifting into the company. And I noticed some people didn't really kind of know what they were in for. I found it to be the hardest working group of people that I had ever worked with in terms of their commitment and energy that they brought every day. And I think a lot of that had to do with feeling connected, beyond the paycheck. And, it wasn't this idea of what you think cannabis is. I mean, it is highly, highly regulated. It is constantly changing and is quite volatile. And there's a lot of people who, existed in the industry before it became legal. And so there was kind of an experience that I think a lot of people had early in the industry of, yeah, I really want to be part of this, but I'm not really sure I want kind of all the other stuff that goes along with it. I guess, lack of a better term, immaturity in terms of how we do business and thinking beyond, just the product that we're dealing with. But, there's all these other things that we need to consider in order to have a sustainable business. How we spend our money, how we hire our people, how we promote our people, all these things are important. And so when I came to True Terpenes, there was an opportunity to keep that centered as we transformed the culture at the company. And I think people still are attracted to cannabis. I think there's probably a little bit more caution of like asking a few more questions around the culture.
Right. We kind of know now, right? Like we kind of understand that there is actually a business behind it, a regulation. So we're a little more the general populace, right, on the outside understand maybe a little bit more. So that doesn't surprise me that you're going to get candidates that are going to be a little bit more aware, but you're still looking for the right fit, just like any other company.
Yeah, well, and you said something earlier around sort of kind of where the industry is rooted, and for True Terpenes, safety has been kind of the core value since day one. It was the whole reason that our founder Chris Campagna started the company, was his own experience with cannabis as medicine, and having it be a safer, gentler therapeutic than the medications he was on, and wanting to keep that notion of safety. And so early, before the vaping crisis in 2018, we brought the manufacturing facilities to the ISO 9001 manufacturing standards, just some internationally accepted set of standards that we could, tie some sense of quality and safety. And then when the vaping crisis hit, that was most of our customers. And I think that's really when we started becoming advocates in the space. And I think when you come forward as advocates, as people who are talking to regulators, helping them understand the science, rooted in safety, rooted in quality, that also starts to come through in, what's going to attract talent. Like, oh, this is a cannabis company that has made investments that I've not seen at any other cannabis companies. It's a company that's safety first. It's a company that, I can see and I can hear and watch their representatives speak to, with real knowledge on safety. Our head of toxicology did her PhD, specifically on safety in vaping. So I think though, that business strategy in terms of why and how the company got started, coupled with the specialness of the industry, is why we still do get, you know, that talent wanting to be part of it.
How do you, this is such a unique challenge. You are in an industry that is growing. You are in a manufacturing space that there can't be a huge talent pool of people who have done this before.
Mm-hmm.
How do you hire if like, what are you hiring for if they don't have, like, if there isn't a place to come from? This is
Mm-hmm.
brand new.
Yeah, it's brand new, and like who's blended terpenes before?
I don't have that on my resume.
Right, yes, to like all these unique flavor profiles. No, and so it's, you know, it's different sort of at the kind of at the what I would call kind of the exempt, you know, professional level, where we're bringing in people from, you know, for our finance and legal and all these other
Sure,
departments.
sure.
There we have the benefit of really people from all sort of diverse industries coming together, and, you know, this is how we do it in coffee, and this is how we do it in tech, and this is how we do it in wine, and really collaborating for some great outcomes and learning so much from one another. For our production employees, we made the choice when we moved into a new facility back in 2022, and 2023 was really kind of building that up and building up the competence. And so as we doubled that employee population to get ready for the facility, like, we're not going to try to find people who've done this work before. We really want to find people who align with our values, who are clear on, so we've identified like these are the behaviors for success, right? Aspirationally, who we show up and try to be every day for one another, what you can expect of me and what I need to expect of you. And let's use that in the job posting, and let's let people like go like, that's a company, I want to work at a company that does that. And if that didn't speak to people, or if that turned people off, great, it's helping me do my job, find them not applying.
Of course.
But it just starts to set the stage of yeah, how we can show up for one another. And so identifying people who align with those, and then we'll teach you everything else, you know, and wanting to learn, wanting to grow, and wanting to be a part of this. These are the things that I can't train you. I can't train you to want to be here.
Yeah.
That's your active choice to get on board. And then we train, we set a career path of sort of 3 levels, and at each, you know, very clearly, you know, you should know how to do this in order to reach the next level. And sharing the pay, you know, with even in the job advertisement, this is where you start.
Full pay transparency.
Mm-hmm. And by, you know, by the time they reach level 3, which is between 9 and 12 months, they see a 65% pay increase. So they see really now meaningful pay within a stable company. We're really transparent with our employees. Every month, we're giving updates on the business. We're giving updates on the product. Our CEOs present. We do celebrations and all of those things too. But yeah, we want people to know that, like, you know, there's a good reason to stay, and pay should never be the reason. But I also don't want it to be the reason people stay or leave.
Right.
And
Right.
at
Right.
that level, that production tech level, you know, people are still kind of in a pay grade where, you know, $5 an hour, no matter how great it is every day here, may be enough that they have to leave. And
Yeah, of course.
so wanted to give them that show them that possibility, and then make good on it. And I think we've got one person who's on parental leave right now, is the only reason that they're not a 3. Everybody else is now up to full competence.
That's amazing. What advice? I mean, this is okay. So this is a gift in a way, where you have the opportunity to attract people solely on a culture fit, because the skills aren't plentiful in the marketplace. What advice, or what have you learned, or what advice might you provide to others through this experience? Those that do have, you know, there are plenty of people, it's a unique position that you're in, and that you have to hire for people that it's brand new. Most people out there are not. What have you learned? What can you offer as far as trying to attract, sell, you know, find the right people when it comes to this culture fit? Because you have almost a perfect experiment of like
Mm,
culture fit, right? Like what worked? What can we learn from that?
mm. Um, well, I mean, it was a lesson that I carried forward from earlier in my career, which is, people are up for a lot of challenge. Don't be afraid of the ugly. That's actually where people see their opportunity. They see where they can
Mm,
make an impact. And I
mm,
think being really clear on what your story is, being authentic in that story, letting people know, hey, this is what you're walking into, but this is the vision. Always couple it with a vision, like where are we going, right? Otherwise, people
mm.
are like, they're not going to know how they're going to make an impact because they don't know where you're heading.
So don't sugarcoat it. So give them the honest answer and say, here's where we are.
Mhm.
It's not perfect. Here are some of the challenges, but we do know where we're headed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I say we're not perfect many, many times. The difference between the values and the behaviors, I say, the values are who we are and who we always will be. The behaviors, those are aspirational. We just try every day to show up like that, but we are not perfect. And how we recover from those imperfect moments, that builds culture. Like it all builds culture.
mm,
Um, yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. So you're in this hyper growth moment and you're bringing in just as many people. You're growing, you're growing, and you're it's almost like your growth is emulated. I don't know what's cause and what's effect, right? The industry is growing, the business is growing, you're bringing in all these people, but now you're starting to approach. How many employees where are you currently?
We're 107.
107.
Mhm.
So my in my experience, right, culture starts to really change at between 50 and 100, and you've already
Mhm.
implied that you're talking about this, and you're gonna start to stabilize. And so what, at some point, right, you'll probably go through in the future, you'll go through another rapid growth phase.
Mhm.
What are some of the challenges that you are experiencing where you've been through this hyper growth, or you're going through, but you're seeing that next kind of phase for the business of that trying to stabilize? What are some of the challenges that you're facing in that transition, either in the moment or anticipated?
Yeah, the one that is looming currently is because we're in our 2024 budget, planning season and looking at things like promotions and raises and getting our facility up to its steady state in terms of full inventory and all our supply chain managed, and we're there now. Well, the people piece lags that, and those promotions that I talked about earlier, and what a great story that is and how much everybody loves it, but the steady state means that we won't be doing promotions month. I mean, we were doing like 4 or 5 promotion announcements every month this last
Mm,
year. And so, but I want people to know it's a good thing that we're not going to be seeing as many promotions. So it's a really hard concept for people to wrap their head around. And part of the approach in helping people understand is first helping managers understand, because we have a one of the expectations that we have of managers is that they're having regular one-on-ones with their direct reports. That, I mean, I check in on it. We do pulse surveys every month. Are you having regular one-on-ones with your manager? Because it's really how you scale cultures through those managers. And so
yep.
helping managers understand, well, a couple of things. One, we've gone from this is what the position pays to this is the range that the position pays. And that, we have validated
Mm,
compensation data now that we use to make sure that we are working with good market data. And that's going to, I think, help people understand that yes, you're a production tech 3 and this is your pay, but actually this is the range, and this is where you have the opportunity to receive merit increases, to be rewarded for your performance in the role, for the tenure that you might have in the role. You Yes, there will be a cap, there'll be a ceiling to that, but we have a strategy to manage beyond that as well. So if people are happy being a production tech 3, or maybe there's just not an opportunity for them to move around in the organization yet, they'll have a reason to stay and feel like that they can be recognized and rewarded. But it's definitely going to be, it's going to be sort of a multifaceted strategy, and
yeah.
making sure managers understand speaking directly to employees. We have a all hands meeting in January. We'll be rolling this out and like getting them to like, oh yeah, no promotions is a good thing.
Yeah, right. That's
Few
a hard,
promotions, not none. I mean, there are some scheduled,
yeah,
but
yeah, that's a hard message. And it's almost like there's always that, oh, it's not like it used to be, right? You sort of have this experience, people who have been around for a while, and obviously it depends on how quickly the company is changing and growing, but there is kind of this, hey, wait a minute, what happened? And I think employees think about, try understand a company as kind of existing in a single state, and it's not the case. And so how do you, I think the question that you're making me want to think about further is, how do you articulate that transformation is happening
Mhm.
and it's a good thing, even though it's not what it used to be and it's different? And especially in that challenge of like, hey, we used to celebrate this thing, promotions, right? Yay. I mean, obviously that's good all around, but now we're not going to have as many. How do you really communicate that that actually is a good thing, right? It's like that is a sort of classic messaging challenge to be able to articulate. And so I definitely um, feel that, understand that that's something interesting. The other point I want to make, or the other thing that you said that I think is really interesting, is when you first, it's almost like the resolution is increasing in the business. I'm trying to think of a metaphor, right? Where you're saying, hey, here is the growth path. 1, 2, 3, discrete steps with discrete salaries. Now that we're filling out, when we're growing, we're going to increase the resolution and say, hey, in 1, 2, and 3, there's actually a range, because we have more people, you're going to be able to advance and get better within 1. And so as you build out that manufacturing, that's a really interesting and compelling way to kind of to think about these employee paths. Because one of the things that I've heard time and time again is that there's a lot, if your organization does not have a clear path forward, how to get there and what that means, employees are much more likely to leave.
Yeah.
So it feels to me like this is going to be the standard going forward, because people want to know how they're going to grow. They don't want to be a mystery. They're looking forward. And so what I like about what you've articulated is, you've not only said 1, 2, 3, but you're saying, hey, there's a lot of room in here, and we're thinking about this and that. And I think ultimately what I hear, perhaps if I were to have kind of empathy for potentially these employees, is this trust in the process and the company, which at the end of the day is the essential thing, right? Beyond, we don't want salary to be the reason you leave or stay, but we do, I think, trust in this organization is one of the biggest levers that you have as an organization with your employees to build that trust. Am I reflecting that? Does that sound like what you're experiencing on the inside?
Yeah, that I mean, and from the early days of this transformation, and the catalyst to it was the vaping crisis, because that was just such a big hit to our business, because that was most of our customers, and it gave us pause of like, how do we stabilize, and what's the growth plan and the strategy, and culture really under, being the foundation to it all. And so I started measuring culture in the first year, and been measuring it over time through an engagement survey, and the same engagement survey, so we can see our process, and we can see the dips, and we can speak to those, and we do review them, we do listen, we've responded, and I think that helps build that trust of, even if it's something I'm going to put into an anonymous survey, they're reading it and they're responding. And I think also, like, what am I going to give credence to? I mean, there's always sort of a portion of people who, are just sort of biased toward the negative, even if they're super excited to be on board, and, they can find fault, and they, and
We
it's
all
like,
can.
yeah, so I put my energy toward the 10, percent who are always on board, and the rest of the company, follows. But there's always kind of salient feedback. And then the promise for communication. There was so much change happening at the beginning. Plus, we were in COVID. Like we started our transformation 6 weeks before COVID hit.
Mm.
So this plan all had to be done remotely from one another, and it's like we have to dial up the communication. So weekly newsletters, monthly all company updates, and I'm glad that we did it because even now we're in the same building together. Those habits have not gone away because people need that communication. And I don't think you can over communicate. And we essentially
That's
tell people like
right.
consider everything we share to be confidential. If you're excited about something that we're doing, go check out our LinkedIn, repost from there. Like, that's public, but we share a lot of kind of the IP that we're doing, gets people excited, but it helps them understand contextually, why am I doing all this? Why is the workload increased? Or, why am I seeing this kind of busyness over
Mm.
here? And
Mm.
it to help them kind of, again, people are up for a lot of challenge if they know what they're working towards. So keep going back, not re-articulating the vision, but like re-emphasizing the vision. And there's that dynamic of forming, storming, norming, and performing. Being transparent around that, like, hey, we're starting to get to a place where we're feeling comfortable with one another. And managers, it's not okay if somebody starts getting like overly familiar and disrespectful to a colleague. Like, we have to interrupt that.
Mm.
Never ever taking our eyes off the culture. I mean, sometimes the people will sort of congratulate me on the culture, and I did frame it up, and I am definitely a steward of it. But I tell people, like, this culture is the way that it is by every single person's choice and how they show up and how they interact with one another every day. Every single choice. That's why this culture is the way that it is.
Amen, sister.
So if you all start making different choices, like, don't look
Right.
at me to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think being also honest that even at the sort of more professional exempt levels, we've got people with many years of experience. I think collectively we've got like 1,000 years of professional experience we can draw from.
Yeah.
None of us have been here before.
That's right.
So, like, letting people know, like, we don't have all the answers. That's why we ask for your input, and it's like we've
Mm.
got a lot of experience to draw from and to share, and I think we can create something great, out of that. But none of us have been here before, so it's a learning journey. We might make mistakes, and I think that has helped, and kind of, I would say, this next year is not going to be a big growth year for us in terms of people. But I'm really curious how it's going to go in
Mm.
the next 12 months as we stabilize with the same crew. What habits and rituals will come out of this, all of the little things that really knit the culture together. I'm excited for it.
It really sounds like this transparency and honesty is what's enabling that trust. And I think if you're able to the bits and bobs of the culture, even some of the behaviors may, in fact, you may need to change as you grow or shift or whatever happens at the market. But I think, to me, what is driving the success of your culture really sounds like a self-awareness and almost a humility in
Mhm.
kind of, we have a ton of experience and this is brand new. And I would also, I would argue that more executives would do well to have that, to adopt that same humility, because no situation is, we've never been where we are right now, no matter what industry you're in. I know you have a million years experience, whatever it might be. And the real problem is when I think leadership, I have seen, is when leadership thinks that they know it all and they know what's best. And yeah, they have to make those decisions, but to be able to be honest with an organization is incredible. And I hope that continues. It certainly sounds like it's on the right track.
Mhm.
We're gonna leave it there. That sounds like a good
Mm,
spot. Sara
mhm.
Stowe, Senior Director of People and Culture at True Terpenes. You can learn more about True Terpenes, TrueTerpenes.com, or you can find her on LinkedIn, SaraStowe. Lots of interesting things going on. Sara, it was so educational to learn from you here. This is an incredible moment in an industry, an intersection of, like we said, luxury manufacturing, hypergrowth tech. It just feels so incredible, and what an experience, what an opportunity to be in. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. It was really, really wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me do it. It just fills me up with all the good stuff. I feel very grateful. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.